Young ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all. Once again, you are welcome here on the Tribune of Awakening Consciousness. So this is the headline of international news. President Donald Trump is very upset about the remarks made in the last 24 hours by President Volodymyr Zelensky. The gap is widening. Well, I don't know if we can say that the gap is indeed widening, since we know that from one moment to the next, President Donald Trump changes his mind on certain crucial issues. But what remains clear, you know that Ukraine, through its President Volodymyr Zelensky, directly accused President Donald Trump today, April 14th, 2025. You said, accuses him of holding a narrative, a discourse that supports Russia. He also accuses the American people of holding the same discourse that supports Russia. He accuses Donald Trump of having rhetoric that aims not to recognize Russia as the aggressor. So, it is in this logic that he is planning a visit of Donald Trump to Kiev. So, it's a kind of summons. He summons him to Kiev so that he can show him the ruins of Ukraine, so that the gentleman can already explain the reason for his narrative, and then so that the gentleman can understand the reality and henceforth be on his side. So, here is the position adopted in the last 24 hours by Vladimir Zelensky, which we discussed earlier this morning during our video conferences. Thus, we have Donald Trump, who responds in another way. You know, Donald Trump, he speaks at any moment. Former presidents or the former president, like Joe Biden, would proceed. Meaning, when he wanted to speak, he would organize a press conference, a briefing, where he would talk and address several topics at once. When he spoke about influence, there were 3 or 4 days to start, commented. But Donald Trump, in his office, even while signing, he might be signing, he puts down the document and he addresses another subject of great importance. And then he makes a decision automatically. So he talks a lot. So what does Donald Trump say about Volodymyr Zelensky and the conflict in Ukraine? Well, Donald Trump helping Zelensky, always saying that Ukraine should not have started this war. And this time he raises the tone again. He says, when you start a war, you need to know that you can win it. When you start a war, you need to know that you can win it. There, it's a harsh truth that he tells Vladimir Zelensky. He says, you need to know that you can win it. He says, you don't start a war against someone who is 20 times bigger than you. It's Donald Trump speaking. He says, you don't start a war against someone who is 20 times bigger than you. And you hope that people will give you missiles. So, he is very clear about that. If America has stopped its military support to Ukraine, and America wants to recover the lost money, here is one of the reasons that Donald Trump is justifying. So, if you know that you have someone in front of you who is stronger than you, 20 times you start a conflict with the person and you count on people to give you missiles, you're deceiving yourself. And that's what Ukraine has found itself in since a long time ago. That's why everyone has noticed, by the way, that it's a proxy war. It took the arrival of Donald Trump to see that NATO is pretending to withdraw a bit, especially America, which has almost completely withdrawn. And so all these things make the situation difficult for Ukraine. But since it is the West, particularly Paris and London, that pushed Ukraine to stand up against Russia, they are fighting to continue financing Ukraine. Let's go. Donald Trump is very upset. Yes. What else is he saying? Donald Trump says, he says that 2 million people have died because of 3 people: Joe Biden, Zelensky, and Vladimir Putin. They continue by saying, no, this war is horrible. So, Donald Trump is pointing fingers at the different parties, meaning all those involved in the conflict. Joe Biden, who encouraged the conflict, and Vladimir Putin, Zelensky, who agreed to submit to engage in the showdown. Putin too, who went. He went along with their movement. But the truth in this statement is that there are millions of people who have gone to rest eternal. Many have died. And up to now, people continue to leave. Imagine this morning, what happened? It was yesterday morning. What happened on the side of the city of Somi? So, it's really pitiful. And Donald Trump even calls this war Joe Biden's war. So for him, it's Biden's war. Because it's Biden who wanted it. And so Biden instrumentalized Ukraine. There you go. But on the other hand, there is another aspect that certainly draws attention. It's the question of the financial aid that America has provided to Ukraine. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has just made a statement that astonishes the world. I ask you to share this video conference, please. Share it as much as possible. Give it a lot of likes, plenty of likes. Share the video in all possible groups, please. The very issue of American aid is also what troubles Donald Trump. Because when he sees a kind of ingratitude in Zelensky, it hurts him a lot. So, Zelensky stated, he says he doesn't remember the crisis well at all. Regarding the amount of American aid for Ukraine, that is, the money that was sent to him, he was happy to declare it there. He doesn't remember the exact amount. Yet, we are talking about the Ukrainian state. We are talking about an administration within which documents are thoroughly. When the United States of America makes a donation, there is a document for that. America keeps a copy, and Ukraine also keeps a copy. But how is it that the comedian dancer president says he doesn't remember? And worse, the details he gives are chilling. I ask you to share this video conference, please. Share it as much as possible. So, Zelensky says this. About $100 million. He continues, he says, but I don't remember well what happened in Ukraine. He says he doesn't remember the amount well. But what happened in Ukraine is between 66 or $67 billion in equipment and money. So, out of the 100 billion, the other one talks about 120 billion. He says 100 billion. But what happened with money and equipment, when you put the two together, is between 66 billion and 67 billion. He doesn't even know the exact number, the exact figure. Zelensky continued by saying that part of the money stayed in Europe. So he accuses Europe. He says that part of the money stayed in Europe. And the other part of the money was spent on transportation. So the money that was sent to them, it was almost useless, since part of it stayed in Europe. We don't know why that part stayed there. And the other part was spent on transportation, since when America makes the donation, America pays for the military equipment from its own companies and transports it to Ukraine. Transportation is costly. They are not going to transport for free. So, here's what Zelensky declares, and which also bothers Donald Trump. How is it that the gentleman does not remember the exact amount? And if he doesn't remember the exact amount, how can he remain grateful to the American administration? And it is this gratitude that Donald Trump demands. So, ladies and gentlemen, the situation is very trendy. It's really heating up. Here is what you needed to remember about international news. Thank you for sharing this video conference as much as possible. I will be back shortly with more news. This was the voice of your humble servant, Mr. Robert Théa.